Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text FORECAST to 603-356-2137.
And here is your forecast for Friday, May 10th and Saturday, May 11th. Friday, mostly in the clouds with a chance of snow showers early, then a chance of mixed showers. Possible snow accumulations of a trace to less than 1 inch. Possible ice accumulations of a trace to 1/10 of an inch with a high in the lower 30s with winds northeast at 15 to 30 miles per hour with a wind chill 15 to 25 above. Friday night in the clouds with a chance of snow showers. Possible snow accumulations of a trace to 1 inch. Possible ice accumulations of a trace to 1/10 of an inch. The low will be in the mid-20s with winds northeast at 15 to 30 miles per hour. And wind chill will be falling to 5 to 15 above. And then Saturday, mostly in the clouds with a chance of snow showers. Possible snow accumulations of a trace to 1 inch. High in the upper 20s with winds northeast shifting northwest at 10 to 25 miles per hour with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. And the wind chill rising to 10 to 20 above.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers Studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
All right, we'll do it live. Episode 151, Stomp, the delayed episode. Should I? Do you think the audience cares of like? Well, should I offer up an excuse, or do we just roll with it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Just roll with it, or do I give my excuse?
I'll give the excuse. A bit tardy, but it's been a busy week for the podcast, despite.
Yeah, we have been recording a ton. We just we just logistically didn't time everything out, but so I got sick. So, and I blame my, I got a little neighbor dispute going on here. Stomp, do me a favor,
really?
Listeners, do me a favor. Like, if you ever have an issue with your neighbors and you think like, okay, and you hear this all the time from people, like, oh, just go over and have a reasonable conversation with them, before you just call the police. Just call the police immediately. Like, don't even hesitate. These people are maniacs. So,
really? It's elevating to that point?
I mean, it's just people that have older children, that suddenly, they don't seem to have a lot of direction, playing a lot of music in the middle of the night, and you go over there to say like, hey, it's 11:30 at night. Can you just shut the music down? And then it becomes this like.
I wouldn't hesitate to call the cops for that.
Yeah. So anyway, like I tried to have a reasonable conversation and went horribly wrong. So anyway, I think that this person got me sick. She's breathing all over me. So anyway,
well, that's a bummer.
So I wasn't feeling great. We had we recorded the segment with Angel that we'll talk about in this episode like last week, and then we had the plans to record Andrew Drummond. So Andrew will be on next week.
Yep.
So we did that segment on Thursday night, and then the plan was to do this afterwards, but I just didn't have the energy, and then I had graduation the next day, so we're recording this on Saturday, so I apologize.
Yeah, I think we'll get it out this afternoon, right? Yeah,
no doubt.
Saturday night fun.
Yeah, anyway, so welcome to episode 151 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week we are joined on a segment by Angel Sherpa. He is the founder and CEO of US Sherpa. They are an apparel and international trekking company that specializes in genuine Nepal-made apparel. And then also, if you're ever considering touring Nepal, his company offers many options for trips. So we'll talk a lot about like his apparel offerings and also the trip options. And then we'll also learn a little bit more about Nepalese culture, his journey from being like a young Sherpa that was supporting Western climbers to his now home in Vermont. So it's a really interesting story how he came to be like a sort of a struggling young man in Nepal, and he got a lucky break and he was able to get over here into Vermont, and he's made a business out of it. So it's a really inspiring story. All this, plus we got solar flares, northern lights. We're going to break down the bear or man viral challenge. So Stomp and I are going to mansplain the bear versus man viral challenge. So I'm sure
that'll go really well.
yeah, it's going to be. We're going to get canceled. Some real bear news. There's a recap of the White Lake Ultra event, and then Stomp's going to break down. So Stomp's been carrying the load on the hikes lately, so I appreciate that. He's going to break down some recent hikes on Table Rock, Red Hill Fire Tower, and Franconia Ridge. Plus, there's some recent search and rescue news, including some updates on the search for a missing Cambridge hiker. And then 2 Canadian hikers needed a rescue out of the Great Gulf the other day, and social media is breaking out the torches for these two. So we'll break that down. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
This is Ben Pease from Hiking Buddies. We are a 501c3 nonprofit committed to reducing avoidable tragedies through education, impactful projects, and fostering a community of support. You can find out more at hikingbuddies.org. We wanted to say thank you to those who have supported our mission, and most importantly, say thanks to those who speak up, who ask questions, and who are willing to provide guidance and assistance on the trails when needed. You embody what it means to be a hiking buddy. And now, for all my newer hikers out there, here's this episode's Hiking Buddies Quick Tip.
Get at least 200 feet, about 70 long steps, off trail before having a bowel movement. Dig a hole at least 6 inches deep, drop your poo, cover it with dirt you displaced, and rewild the surrounding area, and pack out your TP in a baggie.
Right now you have on the script to talk about Sunday's forecast. So what are we looking at right now?
Yeah, let's just add it since we're a day late here. So in the clouds with a chance of snow, showers possible, snow accumulations up to 2 inches. So it's still winter up there, high around 30 degrees, winds shifting east 5 to 20 miles an hour. Wind chill's going to be still around like 15 to 25 above. So it's still snowing. We're in this cycle. That's why I tried to get out this morning, because the next like week and a half looks sort of lousy up there.
Yeah.
That's the latest.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, there's still a lot of snow on the ground up there. We'll talk about that in a little while. But I guess Stomp, I want to do this story first. Let's just do this one from the Great Gulf that came through yesterday. So 2 hikers needed to be rescued. They call it on Mount Washington, but it sounds like they were down in the Great Gulf. So this was on Thursday around 5:15. 2 Canadian hikers had become wet and tired and were not able to continue due to deep snow and limited visibility of the trail location. So 3 conservation officers were called in to rescue these 2 hikers. So around 10 p.m., the conservation officers located the hikers and they escorted them up the Wamsutter Trail to the Auto Road. So the Auto Road has been cleared and it's ready to. I think it's opening up this weekend.
Okay.
So it's fortuitous for these folks that the Auto Road was open and that they were able to get. I mean, that must have been a nightmare climbing that trail.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense though.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Gulf. I want to talk about the Great Gulf this time of the year in a minute. But so these hikers did not take into account winter conditions with below freezing temperatures and rain, and they also weren't prepared to deal with deep snow. So this one's setting social media on fire. Like tons of people are out there like, oh, these people should be fined. Fish and Game actually did respond to some people that were commenting on social media and said like, look, this is like a 3-4 month process that it takes to review everything and that they'll make a decision at some point. So
they actually responded.
Yeah. But the thing, and we talk about this all the time. Like I tell people like this time of the year, where I tell people to go is check out the Belknaps, check out the Ossipes, even like the southern like Sandwich Range. You can get some good stuff, especially the southerly facing areas in the Sandwich Range. Stick to those areas. Like if you're going to go on the northern side of the presidentials, like that Great Gulf area, you're going to get in big trouble with the Spinks Trail, Wamsutter, you get into the Great Gulf.
Yeah.
None of those areas get any sun whatsoever. So they're also mostly above 4,000 feet. Like once you get into once you get past the Madison Gulf area and you go over that last bridge, like you're kind of at 4,000 feet there. So wherever these guys were, if they didn't have snowshoes, it sounds like, because they weren't prepared for deep snow.
Yeah, you could assume that.
Yeah, like stay out of the Great Gulf unless you're bringing your snowshoes. And I would say at least until the end of May, because the Spinks Trail gets no sun, Wamsutter gets no sun, and then that deep inside the Great Gulf Trail that comes up into the head wall, that doesn't get any sun either.
Yeah, it's the northeast pocket too, so you'd naturally get a lot more snow. I was noticing that today when I was hiking, just like the same sides of Lincoln Lafayette were still covered in snow, but there was really nothing on trail or on the western side. It's just the way the snow falls. Yeah,
and I have no idea how experienced these folks are. It doesn't even say what age they are on the press release, but I have to think that they just didn't know the terrain.
Yeah, just ignorant about it.
Yeah, maybe they looked at a map and said like, "Oh, this is a cool way to go up Mount Washington," and they didn't realize that it was going to be an impossible endeavor for them if they didn't know what they would do when they didn't have snowshoes. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting one, Stomp, and it's just a good reminder, like stay south. The Belknaps are dry now. Ossipee Range is awesome this time of the year.
Yeah.
And then down in your area, like Welsh Dickey and that whole Sandwich Range.
Dry as a bone.
Across, it's fine.
Yeah, even the Franconia Ridge is pretty much, a couple little patches of snow here and there, but
yeah,
Monorail's not bad.
So they picked a bad spot there. So
yeah,
anyway, we can cross that one off. And then next up here, Stump, you've got the sun is hot, the biggest CME in history. What does that mean?
Oh, the old coronal mass ejection.
How would I not know that acronym?
Right, exactly. Yeah, astrophysicists, both of us, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so far so good. I guess the solar flares are really potentially making a big splash here, but so far the only thing that's happened is a dramatic aurora borealis last night, extending all the way down to us in Plymouth and Thornton. So that was pretty amazing. But it's supposed to be the next 72 hours or so that may impact some communications, GPS. We shall see. We'll see.
We'll see if the Starlink holds up.
You can never tell.
I've seen some amazing pictures of aurora borealis here in Amesbury, and I think I've seen people posting from Tasha, who we had on. She had some amazing photos from like Arizona. My daughter down in North Carolina had said that they were able to see it. So
Wow.
The photo's been amazing. So I'm going to get out tonight,
cool.
maybe, I think around 11, 12 o'clock at night seems to be like the sweet spot if there's no clouds.
Oh yeah, that's the question. It's looking pretty cloudy up here at the moment, but yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Been sunny, it's been sunny here, but it looks like, it looks like it'll, we'll see.
Yeah, it's
We'll
clouding
see how
out.
it goes. Yeah, but the pictures last night were amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. And then the script here says, thanks to Mike for a killer interview. So let's thank me. Stomp.
This Sherpa fella, that was a great interview.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I was not a part of this, by the way, listeners. So it's just Mike and Angel.
I felt you had some issues, so me and Angel just recorded it separately. So all right, well, thanks for hyping me up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was great. And wait till you hear it.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up, believe me. All right, so next up is trailsnewhampshire.com, which definitely is a good site to check out. So they seem to be the ones that are most on top of road openings at this point. And I think we're having them on. Are we having them on at some point?
Yeah, a couple weeks. Out.
Very good. So we're going to have them on in a couple of weeks, but they are on top of it as far as the road opening. So they made an announcement a couple of days ago that Bear Notch Road is open, so you can get over from Bartlett up to the Kank now.
Yep.
And the other ones that they're calling out, let me just pick the ones that I think that will be of most interest. So Mount Clinton Road is open, so that's the one that gets you down to Eisenhower. Success Pond Road, so you can get out to Mount Success and
Sandwich. Sandwich Notch Road is open too.
Sandwich Notch Road is open, and then Basin Pond, Crocker Pond Road. I'm going to pretend like I know what these. Oh, Paso Conway Road is open, so that connects from the Kank to West Side Road, North Conway.
Okay.
Harriman Brook, which I don't know what that is. Oliverian Boat Launch. I don't know what that is.
No idea.
Yeah. Oh, Ravine Lodge Road is open too.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So definitely, like, I don't think that the Forest Service is really up to date on their road openings at this point. So you want to check out trailsnewhampshire.com, and they don't just do road. I mean, they do everything. So they've got all kinds of information about hiking, and we'll break it down with them when they come on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it.
All right. So now we've got so we're going to talk about beers for the next probably 10 minutes here or so. So we'll start with
This is pretty crazy.
some news. So this guy down in Springfield area, I think he's from, I think it's like Hadley or Hatfield or something. Yeah, all right. So 31-year-old Daniel Ducharme of South Hadley was likely killed as a result of a car crash. So notice they say likely. They don't know.
True.
So he was driving on 91 South in Hatfield, and police say that evidence suggests that he was, one, either fully ejected,
right, or dragged,
or partly ejected and later dragged from the car by a bear. So he crashed his car sometime at night. And then another driver called police around 11 a.m. on Sunday when they noticed the car was in the woods off to the side of the road. So they don't really even know the timing of the crash. But they found a heavily damaged 2016 Honda Civic among the trees. And then when the first responders got to the scene, the deceased male occupant of the vehicle was outside the car, and a bear was observed in the woods in the vicinity of the scene. And then evidence suggests that the bear at some point had made contact with the victim's body. And the cause of the crash is still being investigated. He was the only person in the car. Police say he somehow lost control, hit the guardrail multiple times, and went off the right side of the road down an embankment. And police had said that the bear had left the area while responders were on the scene. They were able to later find the bear and euthanize the black bear just out of an abundance of caution. So Hatfield is part of the black bear's established range in Massachusetts, and they say there's an estimated 4,500 bears in the state. So yeah, it's one thing to just like have a car crash, but then maybe he did survive and the bear finished him off.
That's what they do.
That's kind of like, I mean, the article leaves that open for sure. So
Yeah, right.
That's got to be the worst.
Yeah, can you imagine your last image of a bear coming up to your head?
Yeah,
Eek.
I mean, we'll see what happens if it was just like, I mean, maybe it was just an honest car accident. He had mechanical issues or maybe something else, but that's scary.
Yeah, it sure is. Euthanizing him too is interesting as well, because the assumption is that this bear is probably going to do that again and start terrorizing the community. So they just take it off the board.
I mean, got a little taste of human blood. That's not good. It's not good.
Interesting.
Yeah. Reminds me, there was like a plane crash out of Miami in 1996 that they crashed into the Everglades, and the area that they crashed into was like so difficult to get to. It wasn't far from the airport. It was only like a couple miles, but it was like so difficult to get to, and it was just infested with alligators.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe you did survive the plane crash, but then you don't survive the alligators.
Yeah, right. Pretty slim chances.
All right.
Now we go over to Japan.
Yeah, record number of bear attacks in the past year.
Strange.
They're turning to AI to act as a warning system. What is this all about, Sam?
I have no idea, but apparently there's been like 200 attacks over the last year in Japan. So something funky's going on. So they're looking at using AI to actually be like some kind of warning system. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but yeah. What's unusual, the focus of the story is just the number of incidents. It's very unusual. And they're brown bear, not black bear or grizzly. They're brown.
Yeah, well, the article you linked, Stomp, it's a fail because it's behind a paywall, but I'll do some research on that, and I'll try to find a non-paywalled version of it for the listeners.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess if you're in Japan, look out for bears. It seems to be a problem.
Yeah, stay home.
Yeah.
Don't go to Japan. And don't drive a car. Don't drive a car in Massachusetts.
Just hike with somebody that's slower than you, and then you'll be fine.
Right.
All right, and then Stomp. This Cowboy State Daily seems to be like your favorite go-to news source here.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. Yeah, it's a different part of the world over there.
Yeah. So this story is a Montana man shoots and kills a charging grizzly while out gathering antlers. So this is like, so Casey likes doing it. Like Casey
sure does.
like doing it. Like this to me sounds like the most boring thing you could possibly do. Like,
until you find antlers. One. Yeah, he does the arrowheads too, but to find a big antler shed is pretty cool.
You feel like I could buy those at the Freiburg Fair if I want one.
Yeah, maybe.
So anyway, it's shed hunting season in Wyoming. So for those that aren't aware, like shed hunt, so there's these people that like they go out and find antlers. So the antlers fall off of elk and deer and whatever. And this causes like cowboys to go out in the middle of the wilderness where grizzlies are, and calamity ensues. So essentially, a Montana man killed a 300-pound female grizzly. That feels like not a very big one, but I guess near Wolf Creek in central Montana while shed hunting. According to the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Department, the man was shed hunting in the area when the grizzly charged him. Fish and Wildlife is investigating the incident. However, experienced shed hunters see it as another sign of the growing threat to people in grizzly country. Their population is exploding, and they don't have a natural fear for humans like they used to.
Yeah.
So
I actually dropped another article here, and what it is that they're dropping these grizzlies off by helicopter into the Cascades and different areas throughout the region. So they're trying to just increase the numbers in this region, but look, obviously it's, causing some trouble.
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
Well, yeah, this is a good article. So it goes on to talk a lot about the whole background of shed hunting, as well as the policies around bear management in that area. So I'll include this in the show notes. Yeah, but this Cowboy State Daily, Stomp. Yeah, you love this. This is an interesting. I'm going to bookmark this.
Yeah, they were always on point with the nature stories and search and rescue in the region too, which is always pretty interesting.
We're about to serve up some tasty hiking drama.
This takes us into our next segment, Stomp, where we're probably going to get canceled for this. I don't even know if we're supposed to be talking about this, but there's this viral thing going around on social media where it's like, I guess it's a thought experiment where if you're a woman hiking in the wilderness on your own, would you be more afraid of a bear approaching you or a man approaching you if you're by yourself? And overwhelmingly, from what I can tell, everybody's like picking like they'd rather have the bear show up than the man. And I guess the implication is that a man is more likely to harm a woman alone in the woods than a bear is, which I guess you could probably do the math on that and figure what you need to do is figure out how many violent incidents have happened in the wilderness between men and women, and then how many violent incidents have happened in the wilderness between women and bears, and then divide that by the number of total interactions, which I think would be an impossible number to determine. You could estimate it maybe, but I don't know what the ratio is. But I feel like ultimately, like this is essentially like no one's interested in doing the math here. What people are interested in is essentially calling out men for bad behavior and using it as a way to essentially say like, you know, hey men, you've got to do better and not be so violent and creepy because we're going to pick the bear. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of silly. Which I don't know if that's fair or not. I mean, like I said, when I see people in the woods, I just say, hi, how you doing? I always announce myself ahead of time. Looking at the meme superficially, it's, I did some research and there's plenty of bear attack documented events over the years. And then, I mean, you just look at that Japanese thing. You do comprehensive AI searches on multiple different sites, and there's nothing in terms of men specifically on trail or in the woods or forest attacking or sexually assaulting women. I couldn't find anything. So, I mean, just on the face of it, I don't know. There's nothing that I could find. I mean, I think we've done enough stories where, and I think some of the stuff that we've done, like I know that there's been, the ones that stand out to me are like the couple in Concord that got attacked. Like if you could read that to say like, all right, they were in the woods, but really that was a walking path. That's not like the wilderness like me and you and our listeners think of. Right. But there's certainly like stranger crime that occurs between men and women. But I think if I just break this down for the White Mountains, which I took a look back at some of my data, and there's two incidents that stand out to me. There's Sherry Roth in 1977, who was killed by a stranger man. And then there was Louise Chaput, who was very likely killed by a stranger man. I think she was like 2002 or something like that. And then on trail, on trail, correct. Then there's been a couple of violent incidents. The one that stands out to me is that husband and wife situation on the Boulder Loop Trail, where the husband tried to throw the wife off of the cliff. That was a preacher's son from Pelham, New Hampshire. I think Todd Spain, I believe is the kid's name. They divorced. The wife didn't want to testify, and I think he got off with a wrist slap. Other than that, I mean, there's probably been some violent incidences that we've heard of, but maybe you could say in the last 30, 40 years in the White Mountains, you're talking maybe a dozen violent incidences that I'm aware of, or not even. Then with bear attacks, I think there's probably been like 6 or 7 attacks or at least interactions with people that I'm aware of. I don't know how many were men, how many were women, but it's a question that really, it's not the greatest example, I think, of what they're trying to achieve with asking that question, just because the likelihood of either scenario happening where it harms you is infinitesimal. Right. I think the bigger point is it's a way to sort of call out that, hey, men's behavior, for whatever reason, from some people's view, makes it so that they would fear men more than an unpredictable wild animal that can easily kill them. Which is a shame. It shouldn't be that way. And I actually feel bad for women that are actually taking this to heart and being super paranoid on trail now because of this. I think it's just overkill, and it's a shame. Yeah, well, I think what the answer you'll get is like, well, you don't know my life experience, and maybe they were attacked by somebody, but it wasn't on trail. I can tell you that. If they were attacked and they're freaking out about men, it happened somewhere not on a hiking trail in New Hampshire at this point. And yeah, it's tough. There's a balance there. Like, men have to be held accountable for bad behavior, but like, we all have there's young boys that I think are getting lost here.
Well, there's bad actors in every friggin' group. Sex, gender, race is bad actors everywhere. It's like not all Catholic priests are pedophiles, etc. You can go on and on and on and on and on. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but we'll bring this up again. Like, I want to get like a female perspective next time we have a female guest on.
Mrs. Stomp was tied up.
Well, yeah, we're going to get Mrs. Stomp, but she's probably didn't want to touch this one with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, but if you do feel that way, there's things you can do to protect yourself on trail. I mean, get some pepper spray then, whatever it takes. I've actually seen some things like cell phone cases that are actually those tasers. I mean, there's stuff out there that you could protect yourself if you're that paranoid about getting assaulted on trail. So interesting stuff.
Yep. Trained martial arts. I think that, a lot of like, I feel like if you want your daughters to have like a good, self-defense background, like I feel like putting them in judo or like youth wrestling for girls right now is exploding. So those are two areas like judo, youth wrestling, like you could get them into that and they'll be able to handle themselves pretty well.
Yeah. If I had a choice between like a female UFC fighter and a bear, I'd pick the bear. I don't want to get my ass kicked by some female UFC fighter.
Yeah. I mean, because the bear, hopefully, the move with the bear is that you're going to punch them in the nose and hope they run away. And then if they don't, like, you're dead immediately.
Have you seen The Revenant?
Yeah.
Have you seen Cocaine Bear?
I haven't seen that one, actually.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we'll put a list of gear that you can use to defend yourselves against the bear or the man in our show notes, and hopefully we don't get canceled for this one.
I think we did all right.
Okay. All right. So White Lake Ultra recap, Stomp. What happened there? Were you mixing on that one?
Yeah, I was mixing that one. That was the last one that Rem and Christina hosted, and now it's being taken over by Aravaipa. And there's a whole other series of races coming up. But can you imagine 50 miles? And it's a 3-mile loop around White Lake. So you're talking X amount of laps to get the 50 miles in. But that's pretty impressive. Weather was beautiful, no bugs. It was just a great time. It was packed. I mean, a couple hundred people for sure. So really nice time. Music went off pretty well, I think. And just looking forward to the rest of the summer.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that area. I've only run in there a couple times just for Reach the Beach. We do like a segment through there, and I've done that segment a couple of times, which is fun. But it would be awesome to just run loops and just have the party atmosphere there. So that's good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, nice.
What time do you have to shut down the music?
I actually left. I started playing at 7. It was May the 4th, so people were dressed up in Star Wars garb. And played a lot of Star Wars music for the start of the races. But I think I took off like around 2:30ish because I had my daughters coming up for a nice visit.
Did you play that like that Star Wars mix from like 1978 or whatever? You know what I'm talking about?
What, like a pop remix or something?
Yeah, it's like a Star Wars like
I vaguely remember.
I think it's like the Star Wars and Galactic Funk or something like that.
I'll do some research. Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
That's funny.
I like it. Anyway.
We all know that hiking a mountain can be hard at times. So here's a corny dad joke to help you get over it. Ba-dum-bum.
All right, now this is the part of the show where we do a dad joke, Stomp. I spent a little bit of time like trying to pick a good one here because there's a lot of bad ones. Thanks again to my friends Lance and Camilla for getting this. So why would you smear peanut butter on the road?
Peanut butter.
The answer is to go with the traffic jam. So you're putting peanut butter on the road and it goes with a traffic jam.
I love how you spend time on this one. Try to.
Seriously, I picked through I was like, no, if that one's not good enough, so I had to settle on this one. But 365 days of dad jokes, and I don't think I've overlapped yet. But every week I say I'm gonna mark it off so I don't remember, so I remember not to do it again. But I'll do a repeat at some point.
Man, that was bad.
Yeah, that was bad.
Hey, what's that sound? It must be time for the pop culture segment with Mike and Stomp.
Pop culture talk here, Stomp. So the Hunt for Gollum, is this something new?
Holy moly, yeah. Apparently it's slated for 2027. Andy Serkis is teaming up with Peter Jackson, the whole crew from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And apparently this is a fan film that's based upon the, not the anecdotes, but the notes in the Lord of the Rings, the ancillary notes. And it takes place between Bilbo's 111th birthday to when Aragorn comes back to the Prancing Pony, somewhere in between there. But this is exciting. It's obviously it's 20, 30 years later, but we have some new stuff coming.
Yeah, and these are always interesting to me because you essentially Tolkien, essentially he died and left a ton of notes and scribbles and all this stuff. And his son Christopher Christopher Tolkien spent his entire life trying to catalog and publish.
He did a great job.
The notes. Yeah, exactly. So most of this stuff is, and the thing I don't know, and the thing a lot of people don't know is, did Christopher ever take it upon himself to add to these notes to try to flesh them out? And I don't know enough. I haven't done enough research on it to know for sure. But yeah, I mean, these things are up for interpretation, but J.R.R. Tolkien, he never really fleshed this story out, but yeah, it sounds like they're gonna take it and run with it. But when you look at the way they did the movies too, there was a lot of stuff that they skipped or that they enhanced that wasn't in the book. So hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Aragorn, but I wonder if he'll come back. Again, he's 30 years older now. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see.
Yep. And then just want to give a shout out to the Tom Brady roast on Netflix. It's been a long time, Stomp, that I've sat down and laughed for 3 hours straight.
I couldn't believe it. This
was a good one.
Yeah. I became a bro for that night for a change. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Even me know that not real money, Tom. that one where they're talking about Tom falling for the Bitcoin scam and Gronk's response. Oh, it's dying.
Yeah, it was great. Fantastic.
Yep. All right, Stomp. You've been doing some stuff on social media, so you're on. So X is that's what they call Twitter now, right? Is Twitter's changed to X?
Yeah, it's the new Twitter. Okay. It's just a new name. But there's I was just thinking, and we can flesh it out and develop it. But I was thinking that their live, they call it Spaces, but their live Spaces app within the platform is phenomenal for just instant communication. So we could fire up a Spaces, and then anybody that would want to just chime in and chat with us about whatever can do so without any gear or anything. You just need your microphone. So I was thinking maybe we could do maybe a hiking debrief or something intermittently and have people just live chatting with us. It wouldn't be part of the show on the podcast, but it would just be posted on that site. I was thinking of some different ways to incorporate some other hiking stories from listeners that may not do the notable thing or whatever. So yeah, I'm doing some research about it.
Could go terribly wrong here.
Possible.
So does that mean I have to do I need to create a Twitter account or something?
Yeah, I think you might have to. Yeah, I think you would have to. Are you against that?
No, I'm not against it. I just haven't I don't know, the whole social media stuff I've been trying to avoid. But
yeah. Maybe we'll see if you can log into the account. Let's just start with that.
Okay.
Yeah, right, I think that might be good.
And I think so. It sounds like Twitter's not going to disappear. The last I heard, everyone's oh, it's going to fall apart, but it sounds like it's good.
Yeah, and the Spaces thing is really impressive. It's really cool. So we have a first sponsor here, correct?
Yes.
48 Peaks Alzheimer's. Use your passion for hiking to help end Alzheimer's. In one collective effort, 400 plus hikers will climb New Hampshire's 4,000 footers or create their own challenge to support the mission of the Alzheimer's Association. The annual hiker celebration will take place Saturday, June 8th at Reckless Brewing Company in Bethlehem with raffles, food, and an amazing community. Hike that weekend or any day you want. No fundraising minimums required, but those who raise $100 will receive this year's performance-grade purple t-shirt. Let's turn the White Mountains purple to end Alzheimer's. Visit alts.org/48 peaks to learn more. You can get stickers at Ski Fanatics. Speaking of stickers, we'll probably bring a bunch of stuff to that Reckless show there. So if anybody wants stuff, just come over to the tent. But stickers are at Ski Fanatics in Campton or Spinner's Pizza Parlor down off of Dascombe Road in Andover, Massachusetts. And the Bonfire Shop's up with a bunch of swag if you want to get some shirts and sweatshirts. They're still selling pretty well. We got a whole bunch of them sold, which is super cool. And we have another sponsor. We'll just get through a couple of these here. CS Coffee. Our podcast is supported by CS Instant Coffee, makers of premium compostable coffee. It's straightforward and eco-friendly, perfect for anyone who loves the outdoors as much as we do. Great for backpacking, day hiking, and camping. And here's a little bonus for our listeners. If you want a free sticker, just shoot them an email at info@csinstant.coffee, and that's www.csinstant.coffee. Very cool, very cool. I'm assuming you're not drinking any beer, right?
Yeah, Stomp, this is the part of the show where we usually talk about what beer we're drinking, but I just have water.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming it's Saturday afternoon, and you're not a big boozer other than once in a while. So I'm assuming you're just drinking coffee or water.
Yeah. I just got off of the ridge, so I'm trying to rehydrate with some of those Noon tablets, NUUN tablets, and water. So nothing at the moment.
All right. Well, this is the part of the show where we do recent hikes. So I haven't gone. I was out in the Belknaps last weekend, and then with Mother's Day weekend, and just not feeling well. I'm not getting out this weekend. So Stomp, luckily, has been on fire lately. So we've got Franconia Ridge you talked about, Welsh Dickey, Red Hill Fire Tower, and then Table Rock. Stomp, you already did Black Mountain. We went through that one before, so you had that on the list.
Yeah, I've done it since then again, but I just...
You did twice. Okay.
Yeah, I've been hitting it after work. It's just quick and easy just to get there. And so I've done a lot of Welsh Dickey, a lot of Black Mountain just for exercise. But the big ones, Mr. Stomp and I went out to Red Hill Fire Tower, did that counterclockwise. And that's, I believe that's Center Harbor, New Hampshire. And it's just a panoramic 360 view when you get to the top of this place. And it's a 2-mile hike up. Either way you go, counterclockwise or clockwise, but the view is stunning from the tower. And at each corner of the tower, they list out what you're looking at on different boards, so you can see pretty much everything. It's amazing, great place. Bugs were nasty though. Bugs were so nasty, dude. Oh, I swallowed a gnat. That was fun.
I hate that. Are you using anything? You got bug spray?
Not yet. Like today, there was nothing. It's just hit or miss right now, just based on the temperature. Depends on how warm it is. Yeah. So before that, she and I actually did that Table Rock thing, and oh my God, that was hilarious. We just had a nice opportunity to get up there, up in the Balsams. That hotel is pretty wild. Very cool spot.
Yeah, so this is for the listeners. This is a Terrifying 25. It's a shortish hike, but it's up in Dixville Notch, and it's that people have seen it. I'm sure it gives that panoramic or that view down into that classic New England
Grand Hotel
resort. Yeah, Grand Hotel view, and it's really it's an amazing place, particularly in the fall to go check out. But it just is like this ledge that you walk out, and then what do you think? It's like probably at least 1,000-foot drop if you go over the edge, right?
Yeah, at least. It's terrifying. I mean, the trail was muddy as hell going on the way up there, and there was a lot of trash. And I'm assuming that was from the eclipse, the totality, because I hear that place was just swamped with people.
Too bad.
Yeah. So that was a bummer, but the view was wild. I couldn't get anywhere near the edge. I just was so sick to my stomach. And Mrs. Stomp was just like, yeah, no problem. And the rocks were soaked.
I got to say, I'm concerned about your marriage because of this stuff. Because, I mean, the dynamic of her just waltzing right out there, no problem. And then you were like, I mean, she must have had the ick. She must have looked at you and been like, ugh, he's sort of not manly for not being able to go out there. I was like, oh no, this is not good. Like, Stomp's showing real weakness here.
It's very strange dynamic because on the way down, she was basically butt sliding on just wet granite and mud because she's terrified of walking down trails that are slippery. So it's just this weird dynamic.
So you both had your moments and then you both shine. So hopefully you just made a pact to just even it out at this point. But
right. Yeah.
I mean, you could have gone out a little bit, Stomp.
I got within probably 20 feet, but I couldn't go beyond that. It was just the arms of death were surrounding me and calling me ever closer. When you get out on that ledge, it literally drops left and right down to nothing. You've seen it.
Yeah, you know what's weird is when you get out there, like for me, like I can go out, but for whatever reason, like I need to kind of drop close to the ground, like standing straight up and going out, like I start to get dizzy.
Oh yeah.
When I don't see everything around me. But if I get lower and kind of like, I don't want to say I crawled out, but I was sort of like, there's a section in there where you can drop down into a crevice that you're sort of at like waist with some of the rocks, and then you can kind of make your way across to the end on your knees.
Right.
That seems to be a little bit more comfortable to me, but like I don't know about walking right out there on the edge.
No thanks. I actually bushwhacked down to a little sub-cliff just north of it.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was pretty cool. That's like more my cup of tea for sure. I could handle that, but nah, you're not getting me up there. No thanks.
Yeah, well, Stomp's a wimp, so now we know.
Yeah, and then finally Frank Ridge today, I just, I pulled a mic like super early, 5:30. I was out the door. I got on trail by 6:30.
Was there any cars in the parking lot?
There was one other car that was idling, and that was it. So I started, I saw nobody up Falling Waters, nobody across the actual ridge. Saw one trail runner coming as I was coming down. And then I actually bumped into Eric Hansen, our recent guest, as he was coming up. So that was pretty cool. But it was just a beautiful day, and I was shocked that nobody was out there. I'm like, where is everybody?
Good. And then you went up Falling Waters and then down Old Bridle.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I made pretty good time. I felt good. They're getting ready to open up Greenleaf Hut, doing some renovations and cleaning up the kitchen. I noticed that. Oh, by the way, the 2 hairpins as you're descending Greenleaf from the summit of Lafayette are not signed. There's no new signage there. So I don't know what people are talking about, but I have pictures. I'm planning on maybe posting them just to say, like, these are the 2 spots. Be careful.
Yeah, and we've posted those before. So what Stomp's talking about is essentially like there's been multiple incidents where when you're coming down from Lafayette, especially like
or coming up.
Emily Sotelo, I think, is the one that thinks comes to mind. But like basically, if you're coming back down, it's very easy to miss this like 90-degree turn on the Greenleaf Trail, which is right below Lafayette, and then continue down into that drainage. So I think that there was some discussion around either signage or trying to fix that area, and maybe there still is something in play. But I think last time I was up there, there wasn't much. And I got to get back up there soon. My friend Felipe wants to go out there, so I'm going to try to get up there in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. But you just need to really pay attention when you're going down. If you're going down from Lafayette, Greenleaf, and if there's low visibility, it's tricky.
Yeah, no doubt. Other than that, there are some new signs that they're putting up, but they're mostly just calling out, be careful for the vegetation. I did notice those tall plastic, I don't know what they're called, but they're marking out certain areas, like when you're coming off the summit of Haystack down into Falling Waters. There's just those plastic poles that are roped off. So there's several of those that are actually pretty handy in bad conditions. Those are new. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think too that's a good reminder for people that if you've got your dog, and I don't judge really that much, but like if you've got your dog and they're good off-leash dog, but they will stray a little bit, then just remember, like once you break above tree line on falling waters, like just put the leash on the dog and make sure they're not wandering around those areas, because I have seen that where the dogs will go under those little plastic stanchions. Those are called stanchions, Snop.
Okay, yeah, you see them like in the winter to just mark off certain things. Okay, stanchions.
Yeah, they're trying to regrow that vegetation there. So,
gotcha.
All right, stop. We got a return for another sponsor here.
Yeah, so Fieldstone Kombucha's back.
Excellent.
So Fieldstone Kombucha is a New England premier craft kombucha company. If you're in the heart of New England, you need to drink a New England style kombucha, softer, less acidic, and truly enjoyable. Our kombucha is naturally effervescent and boasts full-bodied flavor. Fieldstone crafts the best seasonal flavors. When we tell you there's strawberries in our Garden Blush flavor, it's like biting into a sun-ripened strawberry. Women owned and operated, we brew in Rhode Island using locally sourced ingredients. Fieldstone Kombucha is the perfect replenishing drink after a day on the slopes or a trek in the woods. It's chock full of probiotics and healthy acids to keep you in top form. Find us at Sunflower Natural Foods in Laconia, La Tasse Cafe in Waterville Valley, the Concord Food Co-op, and Granite State Food Co-op in Concord, and more. Check out our website for the full list of New Hampshire and New England-wide locations. Use code SLASHER on our website for 10% off an online order shipped straight to your door. So that's www.fieldstonekombuchaco.com. Very cool.
Wow, they're really getting out there in a lot of retail sites.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to stick around here, which is great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So, and we'll look forward to continuing to remind people about Fieldstone for sure.
Yeah.
It's time for Slasher's Notable Hike of the Week. If you want to be considered for the Hike of the Week, simply tag Slasher on your social media post.
And stop here now. We're going to the notable listener hikes of the week here. So we've got a handful.
Yeah, we got a couple. So people can tag Slasher on your hike to be considered for Hike of the Week. And this week we have Littlefoot, who is out in the lower Midwest there, Texas, I guess, Guadalupe Peak. It's the highest peak in Texas at 8,751 feet. So she's out there crushing peaks.
Yeah, and there was I watched a video on there. I'll see if I can pull that for the show notes. It was interesting, like the terrain up there. So it didn't look like a super hard hike, but it looked like a long hike.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the area at all, but pictures were cool. Let's see. Hiking Feeds My Soul and Miles the dog completed the Belknap 12. Very cool. Jude Hikes the Whites, hiked Pierce. Marley Sue was up on Crawford Cliff, Gibbs Falls, and Mount Pierce. And then Gingerbeard pulled off a rainy Squam Traverse just recently, and Carrie Burrell tagged us for that same trip as well. Brady Girl 1 did Whiteface. C. Gothberg climbed Mount Cardigan, and then on another trip, Mount Cube. I'm telling you, dude, I got to get out to Cube. Those pictures I keep on seeing, his in particular, it's beautiful out there. Cube looks stunning.
Yeah. We should do that. We should do that as an overnight and stay at Hexacube. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, it sounds great. It reminds me of the ascent up to Algonquin from Sandwich Notch Road. That untrampled vegetation, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it got knocked off of the top of my list because of the undercast that I experienced on Madison and Adams this winter. But like before that, the undercast that I saw on Mount Cube with my buddy Tom was like the best undercast I've ever seen in the Whites. So that like northern summit area.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
That's awesome. Okie dokie. So a couple more. So Lauren Sampson, 54, hiked Pierce and Eisenhower for 11 and 12 for the New Hampshire 48. Jakester, D2, hiked Mount Meter Trail to Eagle Crag Wild River Trail to Basin Trail, then out Cold River Campground. That's quite the adventure this time of the year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Jake and Peter went out there. They invited me, but I couldn't make it just because I had some other plans. And he said that it was pretty easy going in the beginning, but then they hit some deep snow. So it was slow going even with snowshoes.
I can imagine. That's another area you got to watch out for. Boreal Badass hiked Algonquin Trail via Sandwich Dome as well via the Algonquin. So he was the one that told us that Sandwich Notch Road is open. And I guess his report is that there was a ton of blowdowns. It's to be expected. A couple more. Megs 0682 did Mount Kearsarge, and then Folkstar, that's a new name for us, hiked Mount Wambeck, Star King, and South Weeks. So thanks for tagging us, everybody. What do you think, Mike? Who's the winner? So
I'm going to go with Carrie and Ginger Beer doing the Squam Traverse. And the reason I'm going with this one, I know a couple of other people, like Tim had been on that trail as well, on that hike as well. So I know some of the folks, and I just think back to our temp stomp when we went on a similar day. Yeah. Kind of like the same vibe where it was like a tough, it was tough going in the like sort of rainy, dreary weather, and we actually wimped out and bailed out. So I think shout out for them for sticking through it the whole way. So that's why I give it to them. That's a lot of ups and downs, and it's a much more challenging hike than people would assume on the Squam Range. Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Congrats. Nice work. Congrats. All right. So Stomp, now we're going to move into, you've already hyped up this interview as the greatest thing ever. So hopefully the listeners will agree. But I got a chance. Stomp and I got a chance to meet Angel Sherpa at the AMC 4,000 footer celebration. And I actually bought a hat off of him, which it's really cool. Matter of fact, the only thing I'm bummed out about is that it's too warm to wear like a nice warm hat like I have now, but I'm excited for the winter. But Angel was born and raised in Nepal as a Sherpa, where his entire family worked in the trekking and mountaineering profession. He is the owner of US Sherpa, where they produce functional natural fiber products handcrafted in Nepal for the active, caring and outdoor lifestyle, which directly creates jobs and income for the Nepalese communities. In addition to producing and distributing these products, US Sherpa also offers guiding services in Nepal. So we'll talk about some of the treks and the dynamic about getting over there if you're a Westerner and you want to climb. And just to give people like a little bit of a spoiler, like we talk a lot about like, Mount Everest is not the end all be all. There's a lot going on over there where that doesn't involve Mount Everest that you can do and see, and it's amazing. So, open up your mind a little bit when you're listening to this. But yeah, he basically offers services for trekkers, mountaineers, and cultural tourists who want to experience authentic journeys. Angel lives in South Burlington, Vermont with his wife. They met in college. He's got an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. He continues to travel. Matter of fact, he was on his way out to Nepal, I think, right after I had spoken with him. So he's I think traveling right now, but he essentially does at least one trip every year for sourcing products, helping to guide trips, and meeting with family members and friends. So really interesting discussion and stuff like the stuff that I didn't cover with him. Like we definitely have to get him back in at some point. But this is like a taste of it. If you ever want to know what it's like to be a Sherpa in Nepal, he's going to give you the whole breakdown. So let's get into it. All right, here we go.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool, very cool.
All right, Angel, so welcome to the Slasher Podcast. Have you ever done a podcast before, by the way?
No.
No? All right, so new experience for you.
Yes.
All right. So for the listeners,
I have done a radio, just a radio, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, for the listeners, we had talked about this, I think, like 2 or 3 episodes before, but we met Angel at the AMC Awards. You were at a table like kind of diagonal from us, and immediately I was looking at your products. So he owns an apparel and a guide company based out of Vermont that sells Nepal based products. So I had bought a hat that I've been wearing around the house. So it's very comfortable. And then we wanted to just connect and have you come on because we thought that the audience would be interested in your story.
Yeah, it was really great meeting you, Mike, and your team at the AMC event. It was. I had first heard about your podcast through a friend of mine from my hiking group, Dan Vanderblight, and and it was really cool to see you right there in front of the table.
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on. I guess we're going to talk about your background, how you came to come to the United States. We'll talk about your company and all that fun stuff. But the first thing I want to ask you is, I've always had this question about, so you come from Nepal, everybody knows sort of Mount Everest and the Himalayas and things like that. And then the Sherpa people are known as the couriers and the guides that help a lot of Western climbers. The question I have for you, and I've never dug into this, is typically when you introduce yourself, so your name is Angel, is your first name, as we would think of it in the West, and then you go by the last name Sherpa. But all Sherpas seem to use Sherpa as their last name. So I'm curious, in Nepal, how do you, because I'm just thinking in terms of sort of how we handle names in the West, and I know it's different in many different areas, but how do you, if everybody's last name is Sherpa, how do you differentiate family connections and if people have the same first names? I'm curious about how that works.
So Sherpas are the literal or direct meaning of Sherpa is Eastern people. So people from the East. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's really the origin. So they actually, the right word is Sherwa. Okay. Now, so Sherpas are this ethnic group of people who originally they came from Eastern Tibet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so their origin was Eastern Tibet, and they crossed the Himalayas, the pass that's between Tibet and Nepal. And most of them came from this pass called Nangpala Pass. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the, how a lot of these Sherpas came inside Nepal. And a lot of them ended up, living in places like the Everest region of Nepal, right? Yep. So they somehow, they like the mountains, some of it, also have to do with their belief system, like the religion. So, there is that Tibetan Buddhism associated with it as well. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, you are correct. There are Sherpas, right? With many of them. I would say there's probably maybe 100,000. It is an indigenous group. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those kind of rare, it's kind of, but yeah. And so they all have, you are right. The first name can be also same and last name can be same. And really, how you kind of distinguish is oftentimes you want to find out where they are from, like their village. Okay. Right. So that's a kind of great way to, know, oh, okay. And then they end up, making that connection. Oh, like, yeah, I know your dad's friend, uncle, or, and because it's such a smaller, again, that small community. Yes. Yeah. Does that answer?
Right. So it sounds like then like the population's not big enough for you to necessarily need to distinguish last names as long as you can establish the geographic region where the person's located. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. And also the fact that, when they left Tibet and then came in Nepal, right? Again, most of them were living in places like the Solukhumbu district, which is the where this national park is when people go trekking, hiking, mountaineering. Sagarmatha National Park, that's where it is located. And so most of them primarily lived in the mountain Himalayan villages and things like that. And over the years, they kind of migrated or went to different places. Yeah.
Got it. Now your story is interesting. So you grew up in Nepal in your early days. Can you talk to us a little bit about growing up in Nepal, and then you were able to, I think, come to the United States as a young person and go to college here. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about your story?
Sure. So growing up in Sherpa household, in my family's case, my family is from the Kumzung area, which is the village that is on the route to base camp and Everest and some of these big the Himalayan peaks. So I grew up in the Sherpa, where our family worked primarily in trekking and mountaineering profession, right? Where pretty much, my grandfather worked in the trekking and mountaineering profession, then later my dad. So so having that kind of background, I didn't know much in terms of where I would end up, down the road. But really, in the case with Nepal, the job, right? It really, the opportunities for jobs and things like that. So trekking, the tourism plays a huge role. Many people, the case with my parents, they never had an education. So then, oftentimes people there, right, they learn by doing, my case with my dad, right, not knowing, English or even, he spoke Nepalese, but he could, he never went to even a first grade school in Nepal. And then, again, like getting a job in trekking. So where my dad and mom both worked as a porter, so they kind of built that, and slowly, and, so the way when, I went to school in Kathmandu, and for them, for giving us that opportunity to go to school, so that in a sense, they kind of, we really had nothing. And so I got that opportunity to go to school, and I started going trekking with my father, and then later with other agency trekking outfitter, and seeing that really, and for me, it was a job. Okay. So like back then, same thing. It was a job for my dad, and
how old were you when you started, doing the actual work to be?
I want to say, like 16, 15. Okay. And so that, so getting that again, it was a job, and building that experience and learning about it kind of, then I'm like, I want to be independent, and I don't want, my parents to worry about me, because again, by then, in Nepal, by 15, 16, things are different now. But back then, you are somewhat a man, and you gotta go work and make money. So there is a lot of that kind of, cultural, so there is that pressure. So, and, I kind of started like really like, again, I want to be able to support myself. The last thing I want is my parents, having to bring enough money for our whole family. I should be able to take care of myself, the least. Yeah.
When you start working with these outfitters, do they give you, obviously there's not like a formal training, but do they give you a rundown on how you're expected to interact with the clients? And I'm assuming you get a mix of clients. Like you'll get Western climbers, you'll get climbers from India, you'll get climbers from Japan, China, whatever. Do they give you like a rundown to say like, hey, this is how you're expected to act around these folks?
Yeah. So generally, so they have a different level of interaction, right? So depending on what your ranking is, right? So then, yes. So if I were to work as, basic Sherpa guide or assistant, then I'm going to be supervised, or there is somebody, higher above me that I'm supposed to report to that person. So he essentially is the person, like say, hey, these are and they will give us that overview or duties, like these are what you are expected to do. And then it kind of follows, right? So oftentimes, again, that they would have, porter, right? So you got porter, and then you have kitchen staff, another title ranking, and then you have Sherpa, and then you have cook, then you have sometime, multiple Sherpas depending on the size of the group, and then also cook also is pretty high level, like up there, and then you have they call Sardar. Sardar is like the main leader. So those,
Wow. And then how did it come to be that you ended up with the opportunity to come to the United States?
Yeah. So super, super wild, like how I ended up in the US. By 16, 17, I was really, again, I think for me, going abroad, right, is going to be the big thing that's going to really change, my life. And, and I was trying to find again, yes, the trekking, mountaineering job, it's seasonal over there. You can do quite well with that job. But again, when you are starting out, it's not easy. And so, yes, you have a job, you get some group signed up, and then you go in spring season and in fall. But for me, and then I was like, going abroad is going to be, what I would really, in a sense, I kind of wanted that. Mm-hmm. And US was on my top list, like dream country. But, I didn't know that many people from US, working with, as I was there, people from England, France, Germany, Japanese, but not many Americans then I met this doctor, and climber, also he's a humanitarian, Dr. Jeff Tabin. He had summited Everest in 1988 with one of my uncles, again, who worked as a Sherpa climber. And he had been in the US, I believe, once, through his, help sponsorship. And, then I had kind of heard about this doctor when I was, in Nepal. And, again, I think by then, I still remember a lot of these little things. I was, trying to get a job at this hotel and, no job. It's like, there will be like 5 jobs opening and 300 people will apply, and either. So no, not there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, Angel, because I think like that whole stress of like, you're a young person and you're trying to find, a job opportunity, and it seems like it's so competitive. Like, I feel like that's a universal story, even in the US. Like, we have, we had that challenge, and it can be a dark time, and you question yourself, and you're like, where am I going to go from here if I can't get this job, or I'm not going to be successful? So it's got to be a dark time.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, the dark times. Like I felt that, again, so trying these jobs and not getting any of the jobs. And then, I even was, selling posters on the mountain, waking up at 4 a.m. and then go to the peak at the summit, because that's where people come there to see this amazing sunrise. And I'm there, photograph. So, and really my hope is like maybe someone would be kind enough to say, hey, maybe I'll help you, and I was like, my pitch line was, can you help me go to, US or Japan, whatever. And then, I applied to go to Japan, right? And my family, we were very sure I would get this job, and where I would go to Japan for a couple of years, work as a, the labor job, migrant work or whatever. And I was like, wow, they pay quite well. Mm-hmm. I can go there for a couple of years, come back, all that, but did not go well. Same story. They said we had like 10 openings and it got filled.
Yeah.
I was so crushed, came home. I remember pretty much everything is still, that was 26 years ago. And came home, my mom and I had gone there that morning, came home, and dark times, I was literally just super sad, like just depressed. And that afternoon, we had a telephone, in Kathmandu, and, at home, the phone rang. I happened to pick up the phone call, and I spoke English. My English was pretty bad. And however, it was the call from Dr. Jeff Tabin, the one who had summited Everest. And he said, I brought a small gift for your family, from the US. Can you come here, pick it up at this hospital where he was working? And I understood. I said yes. And, I told that to my dad. That what my dad was working as a Sherpa, getting ready for the upcoming season. That meant getting tents ready, checking all the cooking equipments, mattress, all of the expedition gears. And I told him that. He almost went on his own. However, he changed his mind. He came home. He asked me, hey, do you want to go with me? I said yes. I still remember what I wore that day. I was wearing these clothing, like trekking gears that I got from this clients from England. The shoes, like all like bigger size clothing. I went there, and the moment I met the doctor, he just was, super like energetic. He just lit me up. He was like, hello, how are you? All this, and it cheered me up so much. And then, we, as we had this little conversation, me and my dad, we asked in a very shy manner, you help me, America.
Yeah.
And then he asked me a couple of questions, can you do this, that, pretty normal thing. And I said, yeah. And right then he wrote me a sponsor letter saying he's going to help me come to the US. And, I just couldn't believe what had just happened. So.
But then also the reality is, so when he called your father. Did you and your father travel to the U.S. to meet him initially?
No,
and that's when this was all over the phone.
Oh yeah, So my uncle had been in the U.S. once. It wasn't my dad. And it was my first meeting with him.
Okay.
And so it was all happened, that morning. I got rejected to go to Japan and, US. Yeah. And then I came home, my mom was needing, right there on the front porch. And that's when some of the products, kind of comes to be, right, as later on. And, we were just jumping with joy, just like, can't believe this is happening. Yeah.
And then once you were able to get approved to go to the U.S., then what was the logistics behind that? Like, I'm assuming he was located in Vermont, so that's how you ended up there?
Yeah, so it was in Vermont, his family, and so I would be helping his family, with kids. Like I would be babysitting or helping as a nanny, his daughter, and helping cleaning, cooking. And for me, that just is like beyond like my wildest dream that I, have that kind of chance, right? Opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I came, to the US, like not taking, flight ever in my life. And again, had met this doctor once and I came straight to Burlington, Vermont.
Wow. And then, how big of an adjustment was it for you?
Oh, huge, it's like, so I was 18 when I left there, and, it's really interesting. Even when I left there, I was like, as all my relatives came to see me, saying, goodbye, in Sherpa culture, again, it's very common. They are very social in the sense, community, right? They all gather for anything like this. And, and I still, even then, when I left there, I was like, I'm not coming back until I get what I want. I remember one of my aunts saying, okay, go there, and come back, okay? And I'm just like, I don't think so. Then I came here, then the reality is different, right? It's almost like sometimes makes you want to think, be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Your wish can come true. And are you able to, right? As a young man, Yeah,
you're going to face those dark time moments again where you're like, okay, where am I going to earn income and things like that? But it sounds like you settled in. Eventually you ended up enrolling in college and then meeting your wife and settling in. Can you, before you get into that piece of it, and my background is, so I work with a lot of people in India. And there's cultural differences between the U.S. and India. And I think the way I describe it is that the U.S. from a hierarchy perspective, like it's, I have no problem having a conversation with the CEO of the company and giving my opinion or, a doctor, I have no problem sort of interacting with them directly. In India, it's more of a hierarchy. So if somebody has a higher title than you or a higher status than you, then you're not as always open or free to discuss that. So I'm assuming Nepal is similar to that. And I'm guessing you might have struggled with that a little bit to say like, all right, well, I can be on the same level as this doctor who brought me over here and I can give him my opinion freely without, and I'm assuming it probably took you a long time to adjust to that.
Totally, and that's a really great point. Like, so for me, imagine, right, like I was, taught, right? Again, you asked me earlier about, for job in the trekking and mountaineering, the overview, different ranking, and there is no, it's like you have to earn it, right? You have to go, like you have to be out there, right? And then kind of build your reputation and then, so they don't just teach you, here you have like job description, they'll say, okay, these are the tasks you're going to do. So over there, like so it takes like somebody then will kind of mentor you, like kind of like take you on, so it's a very old school, right? Very old tradition. And for me, like, having that having been taught that, like my role is to serve, the clients, Western clients, you eat food after them. You always, when you are entering, you have to talk to them softly, like always smiling, all of these. And then I come here to the US, and I'm like living with the family, like eating with them on the table. So that's just a little piece, now how do, and here, and there is, plus and minus, right? I do like that culture of the respect, how, kind of like, so, but yeah, it took me definitely a while to understand, the whole, day to day. And even, you may speak English in Nepal, but when you come here, it's to understand their daily, everybody has their own way of speaking, fast, slow. So I want to say it took me at least a year just to kind of understand, like just to go having a little conversation. Yeah.
And so you ended up like going to college, meeting your wife. At some point you had to make a decision around, your career, and you took the path of becoming an entrepreneur versus what we would typically view in the US as maybe the safer path of like, okay, let me find a job where I'm working for a company. So you were willing to take that risk. And then in addition to that, you found a path where you could give back to Nepal from the perspective of your company. You basically have like two product lines. So the name of the company is US Sherpa, and you can check out the products at, ussherpa.com is the website. So you have two products, essentially. You have apparel products, and then you have the trekking services. So can you talk about the apparel products to start with, and we'll get into trekking services afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So, the whole thing for me is that opportunity, right? How I was given that opportunity. And to me, that was once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to come to the US. And, when I didn't know where I was going to go, I just know that, wow, I'm going to my dream country, and you cannot fail there. You cannot fail. And then, having that environment where you had this doctor's family, who I ended up living with for like 4.5 years. And the family calls me their son from Nepal. Yep. And beyond my wildest dream, I thought that I would be able to go to school here. They helped me go to school for a couple years, high school. And then I went to college here for 4 years. So I think, when I felt like I had the sense of responsibility, being that like I got, like 1 out of a million, kind of like that, of course it came with a lot of hardship, but I stuck to it, right? I stuck, living with the family, helping around the house, going to high school full-time, college full-time. But I got introduced to all this outdoor world, right? How the family was super active, going hiking every weekend, running, skiing, climbing. And I started getting, living with that kind of family. I was like, just, the whole, like, you asked me earlier about the culture, and I'm like, I started seeing opportunities, right? Because the doctor was also, when I first met him, he was just starting this nonprofit organization in Nepal, where they would partner up with this eye hospital in Nepal. And that meant that there were going to be a lot of traveling going back and forth between doctors, medical students to Nepal. And that meant for me, me, wow, jobs for my family back home, for my dad, for my uncle, my nephew, my cousins, because they are often like, that's what they want. They want to have a job. They want to be good. And so that kind of made me, that whole, I'm like, wow, I can, and same thing, and that was a huge part of this US Sherpa, getting that opportunity living with that family. And I started, again, the entrepreneurial sense, wow, I want to build this. There is a big market, I can open up doors, make Brahman my home, again, Nepal my home, and help them, make this travel more organized, so that they have somebody in Nepal also to help them put together. And so that, and then the handcraft side, right, where the products, apparel, how that came to be was that, again, back home in Nepal, when my dad worked as a Sherpa guide going in the mountains, sometimes he would be gone for 3 months expedition, and he would be gone, we don't know, there's no phone, and out, hopefully he's good. And so then as he went out to make money for the family, my mom did some knitting, she would knit winter hats and gloves and socks. And it was really interesting. Back then, my mom would get an order from outfitter, right? The trekking expedition outfitter. They would say, oh, we have 20 people coming for this fall to go to trekking, and we're going to need, 40 staffs for that. And we need to have warm hat and warm socks. And my mom were making essentially these products for my dad, people were going to. So, that, and then seeing that here, I started saying, wow, in Vermont, people like these kind of products, like these hats and gloves. And so that really was kind of my big, okay, I can connect, Nepal and Vermont through these, the trips. And so that's kind of really how it started, Mike. I was, yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so just for the listeners, so the apparel products, and these are actually, they're very reasonably priced. And I believe, look, I got four women in my house. And I already, showed them I showed them the hat that I bought at the AMC Award. I've shown them the bags and the wraps. So there's shoulder bags, and then there's wraps, what we would call them, potentially scarves as well. Okay. And usually the price range for these is in the mid 40s to mid 50s, maybe $60 for product. And then you've got headbands and hats for hiking. I mean, I have a hat, but I actually am going to get a headband too, because I prefer the headbands when you go hiking, because you can just pull it down around your neck if you get too hot, and then put it back up. And then there's socks, slippers, and mittens. Mm-hmm. And then you've got a felt collection. So these are all made in Nepal and then shipped here to the U.S.
Yeah, all made in Nepal. So again, going back, as I started going to high school, even in high school, I started selling products, right? Yeah. I would have some of the folks who went to Nepal, back then I would use a calling card and say, hey, can you send this? And, the guest who went trekking or stayed at my family's homestay, they would bring a small, this or that. And I would kind of go around and they started selling. And so then after I graduated, I went to Champlain College in Vermont. And then after I graduated, the senior year of my high school was when I really started saying, okay, I want to start a business. I want to build this business, and did this project in my senior year.
And by the way, we'll have you back on in the future. Just the experience of a kid from Nepal going to U.S. high school, it's going to be crazy. Yes. but we don't have that much time. But we'll get into that in the future, I think. But the stories you must. It's like dropping somebody out of space into a new planet or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like going to grocery, I remember went to the grocery store for the first time with the family and we are putting all this food, and I'm like, oh my God, this is all for us? And it's like, yeah, this is, you start throwing everything in the cart.
Oh yeah. We're going to definitely have you on multiple times, so we'll talk more about that stuff. But anyway, just going back to the apparel, like I said, like the price range on these things is like, $20 on the low end up to maybe like $60, $65 for some of the bags, but very reasonably priced. And then you have a Mother's Day sale going on right now with 20% off.
Yes. Yeah. We have a Mother's Day sale going on, 20% off. I'm actually heading to Nepal next week, or actually Tuesday.
So coming up soon. So for the listeners, again, it's ussherpa.com. We'll include the link in our show notes, and then we'll push it out on our social media as well. I bought a hat. I definitely checked out some of the socks and slippers. I got Mrs. Mike, my wife. She's up there on the computer right now, picking out some stuff, I think, for the kids. So definitely, I think quality stuff that I think hikers would love. And what is your philosophy around like switching up the products? Are you always bringing in new stuff, or do you pretty much stay consistent?
Really, great question, right? Because the products, right? Nepal again, right? And I think, I feel beyond, proud and, to have this, very grateful for what I've been able to do. And then also, the lifestyle that I had chosen, yes, it didn't come easy, when I, after finishing college, I worked full time for a different company, but then I kept building my business on the side. It was only 2012 I went to US Sherpa full time. So now it's been, I think, 12 years. But and that was, big decision, like, oh my God, is this going to work or not, but I think that has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. I think the love and the passion, I felt like the energy that I was kind of giving to my job, to my business after going to full-time job, I felt like that's not right. Because I was like, I'm giving my, tired energy to this, something I love. And, so that's, been the kind of like the journey for products. We look at how the talent, right? These incredible hand skills, the job in Nepal, like there's still not many machine there, right? People are working in very traditional way. Again, what I'm doing now, after all these years is still same thing like what my mom was doing, right? She was needing to bring income for her family. And there are still thousands and, thousands of people who want to work. And so that's kind of what I'm doing, and so that journey working, going back home and to work with the leaders, we do some of the designing here. We work with the product designer, come up with a pattern design for these products, and really showcasing some of these, cultural products to, like, say, the hats, for example. We use our traditional Sherpa pattern, right? Like, how do we show some of these color pattern? And then we kind of say, okay, this pangdin that Sherpa people wear, with this wool, kind of almost like this apron thing that a lot of the folks wear up high on the mountains. We wanted that pattern put on our hats, and we have those like Kumzung hat, the Bera hat, those have some of that on actual product. So we create new patterns and then bring it to folks there. Like when I go next week on Tuesday, I'll be meeting with them. They just finished their samples. We have a bunch of new pattern coming out, which we are super excited about. And yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I bet our listeners will be interested in this because we're all walking around with like this, the REI, the Columbia, the North Face. Like, forget about that garbage. Like, we're going to get the real deal stuff from you, which is nice. And then on the other side of the product offerings, and we're going to have you back on to talk about this in more detail because I think we probably want to do a full episode just about like climbing and in the Himalayas with you in the future if you'd be open to doing it. But the trekking services, so you do offer if groups wanted to get together and do and I think you basically will customize depending on what the interest is for the climber or the group, like to easy treks to strenuous. And then some high mountain area, like you're not taking anyone up Mount Everest, but like you'll take like 24,000 feet maybe, and that's about it. But talk a little bit about what the offering is and how customizable the options are.
So so the treks we offer are super one-on-one customized trips, and these are smaller group size. So I call this super small outfitter, right? We are that. And then back in Nepal, so the folks, same story, the people some of my family relatives, we are still doing same stuff, the guiding, trekking. So it can be, I want to say the shortest one we have is we call Easy Trek, can be 7 days, right? Mm-hmm. It can be 7 days in Nepal. And then, so the days number of days are super important. And then the elevation, right? So those two play a big role. And it can go up to 3 weeks, like being in Nepal for 21 days. But we really work with the individual, on one-on-one basis. We have one-on-one direct support from here in Brahman all the way to Nepal. And, and that's what I have been able to, find or known is over this last 26 years, hundreds of trekkers, travelers who went to Nepal, that, what I have been able to do opening, yes, I got brought to the US and I was able to open doors for many people back home, but I want to do that for, travelers, somebody from here. And I feel like people from the Brahman, New Hampshire, New England, like they should use that resources that you have right here, right? To just kind of guide you step by step on. So that's really what we do.
Yeah. And I think for listeners, if you're interested in this, and we talked about this a little bit at the AMC Awards, but I think like everybody thinks of Nepal, like they think it's the same thing in New Hampshire, like, oh, I'm going to go climb Mount Washington. It's like, yeah, that's great. Mount Everest and the high Himalayas are great, but there's a million other interesting places that don't require you to go at, up to insane elevations. Like you could just trekking across the different regions and going through different mountain passes and experiencing the villages. I mean, that in some ways is probably better and more reasonable for a lot of the people that enjoy hiking in New England to do a trip like that. And you can say like, all right, I want to do a 10-day trip or I want to do a 14-day trip. Matter of fact, I'm looking at a picture of me and my friend Tom, who we went out to Yosemite, and I'm like, we're going to be calling you and thinking about doing something like this in the future because, especially as you get older, like you only have so many weekends left. You only have so many days left in your life, and experiencing something like this, living in New Hampshire and being able to go to Nepal, it's not for everyone. I think it's probably not cheap, but it's you're here, and we wanted to offer that up to the listeners so that they're aware that like there is a path and there's somebody local that can connect the understanding of what it's like to be a New Englander going to Nepal.
Yeah, and we offer, we go hiking together here in Vermont. Like I had right now, somebody from Vermont is trekking up to Everest Base Camp. And again, I worked with her from day one, saying sometime going hiking together on some of the mountain peaks around Vermont or New Hampshire. And I have done that, whether going on to Mount Adams or Jefferson and back here in Vermont. So, I truly believe, right, the trekking and in the case like with hiking, it's like the most powerful form of traveling, right, where you get to learn so much, and it's, and it's authentic, right? That's what the real deal is. And trekking is a long journey by foot, right? That's the dip. And so that is the experience that we are offering, so, and then in the case with people, here in New England hiking to the White Peaks or the mountain in Vermont. Yes. So I think, you have that opportunity, right, to go. Yes, you can practice and do hiking here, but I would say, and I think living in a, developed country, so advanced, with jobs, and I truly feel, that's like the least you should do, Yeah. It's like, why not, right?
Yeah, get out there and experience new things.
Yeah. And that's the beauty. Go there, come back, seeing that, and that's, I feel like, really one of the, it should be like a requirement, it's like, go, because again, why not? I think the money, it's nowadays with also the, airlines, all of that, there's so many different deals also. So yeah, and like going, traveling, you have places in Europe and all that. Europe getting there is, I think, somewhat easier, right? You can get there even, later on when you are older, but going to these bigger peaks where you are keep putting it off, like go experience now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'll link in our show notes the list of the different options that you have, and then again, it's customizable, so you can get in touch with Angel to talk about what you're interested in. And then we're up against time. Stomp promised me to keep it to 45 minutes. But we definitely want to have you back on. Oftentimes we'll talk about sort of the culture around climbing Mount Everest in the Himalayas, and I'm assuming you'd probably have some really cool insight. So if you're open to it and you think that this went well, hopefully you'll get some sales through this, and we'll have you back again in the future for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. What do you think, Stomp? Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah, he's a sweethart. I gotta say,
awesome guy.
There's no such thing as a lousy Nepalese person, or you know what I mean? They're like the sweetest, most amazing, or authentic people ever that I've. They're just nice.
So, Stomp, I'll just in my life experience, I have a theory that bad people are evenly distributed throughout the world. So I think that there's probably some mean Sherpas, but we just haven't met any yet.
Yeah, I don't know. They could break the mold.
That's my
here.
philosophy, but who knows? Who knows? But no, Angel's a great guy, and we didn't really get into talking about like his local hiking, and I even said to him, I was like, you could do like a whole like HBO series on like the kid from Nepal going, being dumped into a high school in Vermont, in Burlington, Vermont. Like it just must have been wild.
Oh, it's a great story. Just the whole transition, and certain doors open up, and you just do it. You just go for it. It's awesome. Yeah. Super inspiring. Excuse me.
Yeah. And the products are awesome. Like really priced reasonably, and like a great option for people that want to get like authentic gear. And like I was sampling some of the stuff at his table, and it's like really quality. Like the hats were amazing, the socks were really good, and then the handbags for if you're a guy and you're listening, you want to get your wife or your whatever woman in your life, like I think that those bags will really be appreciated. And like I said, like it's all reasonably priced stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it goes to a good cause.
Yes. Yep. All right, Stomp. So moving on to recent search and rescue here. I think we've got one more advertiser here.
Yeah, Vaucluse gear. Does your backpack not provide enough ventilation? Does your back sweat too much when backpacking? As you know, sweat can be extremely uncomfortable on the trails. Plus, sweat is a serious risk factor in both hot and cold climates. As your clothes get wet, your core temperature can dramatically fluctuate, and this can result in hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and dehydration. Let's not forget, just very uncomfortable. Today's your lucky day because we have good news for you. There's a piece of gear that solves the sweat and ventilation problem, making your backpack more comfortable. That's Vaucluse's ultralight backpack ventilation frame. This ultralight frame is a backpack accessory that easily installs in your favorite pack, size 15 liters to 45 liters, and creates a ventilating airflow gap between you and your pack. It's also ultralight, weighing around 3 ounces, which is basically a pair of wool socks. Whether hiking in hot or cold temps, the ultralight backpack ventilation frame from Vaucluse is a real game changer, for sure, regarding airflow and ventilation. So visit VaucluseGear.com to order an ultralight ventilation frame today. Use promo code SLASHER to enjoy a $5 discount, and let them know that Mike and Stomp sent you.
Stomp. So, yeah, definitely take advantage of Vaucluse if you don't want to sweat, for sure.
Yep, it's that time of the year.
So we're moving on to search and rescue news here. So this first story is out of Georgia. So 2 hikers were hiking along this trail called to Rainbow Falls. So 20 and 23-year-old hikers, and they were family friends. So 23 years old and 20 years old. They live in Cohutta, Georgia, and Birchwood. So this is close to Signal Mountain area. So they were very close family friends. Apparently, the older woman had reportedly attempted to cross the creek and fell into a hole in a drop-off and then went underwater. That prompted the younger man to go in and try to rescue her, and then they both fell. So this is a good reminder. I think this is where hiking poles really play a part, Stomp.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always kind of probing the depth.
That's terrifying, man.
Crossings with the hiking pole. So even if you don't have hiking poles, just grab some sticks and just make sure that you've got some stability going on so that you're not surprised by something like this. And obviously, the most obvious thing you want to be able to do is make sure that you can see the bottom. If you can't see the bottom on something, then and it's moving fast, then you need to reconsider where you're going.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a terrifying story. It can happen. It doesn't have to be something major. I mean, just even these shallower crossings that we deal with, something like this could happen. So,
yeah,
awful.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It could be that they didn't know how to swim or they weren't strong swimmers, and it's tough to really tell from this article how strong the water was, but certainly they went into a deep hole and couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
So, good reminder to be careful here. And then the next one here. So this is a sad story about an Adirondack forest ranger by the name of Robbie Mark Meekus. And I got this sent to me by a couple of people. I guess Robbie was pretty well known, 52 years old, was an Adirondack forest ranger involved in a ton of rescues. So this was a person that had given a lot back. and worked for the Department of Environmental Conservation, I guess is where the forest rangers work under. So 25-year career with the DEC, involved in a ton of rescues. The quote is, Robbie was an incredible person, a pillar of strength, always there for the most difficult rescues and crises, and a tremendous leader for the LGBTQIA plus rights. I feel fortunate enough to know her. So yeah, a really interesting background here. Yeah. Apparently Meekus, Robbie Meekus was climbing with a partner by the name of Melissa Orzechowski in Denali National Park. So they took a trip to Alaska. Yeah. They were climbing on Mount Johnson. Matter of fact, I remember seeing the news articles about this.
That route's hardcore.
They had named the victims. Yeah. It's crazy hardcore. So it was 8,400-foot peak in Denali National Park. They were ascending a route on Mount Johnson known as the Escalator, which is a steep and technical 5,000-foot climb. And unfortunately, the pair fell about 1,000 feet, which was witnessed by another climbing party. So that's good news, at least that there was another climbing party on the route that witnessed it and was able to get to them quickly. But unfortunately, when the climbers reached both of them, Meekus had died in the fall. The other climber was airlifted out on Friday and was in critical condition, receiving medical care in Anchorage. So, wow. Again, this is basically, I think, the equivalent of like a conservation officer for New Hampshire. So, but they had said she was part of hundreds of search and rescues over the career. Most recently, had played a role in finding a hypothermic and frostbitten hiker during a snowstorm in the high peaks last month. So, this was a first responder that was getting out there all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Apparently, the pictures are pretty prolific. That's a shame.
Yeah, so rest in peace.
Yeah.
All right, so now moving on to local stories here, Stomp. So we already covered the 2 Canadian hikers, so I am going to skip that one here. So there was an overdue trail runner that was found safe. This was on April 26. Fish and Game was notified that an ultra runner was overdue on his trip in the Pemi. So the runner was reported overdue by his family. They believe that he planned to finish the 26-mile trek around 4 p.m. People still going out there and banging out Pemi loops this time of the year. That's impressive, but also
wild.
So, well, I guess he wasn't doing the Pemi loop. He was on the East Side Trail, and then he was going to return via Thoreau Falls to Lincoln Woods. So he's traveling in an area that like doesn't get a lot of traffic. So he was overdue. He, I guess conservation officers and volunteers from Pemi-Sar responded to Lincoln Woods, and around 8:30, a conservation officer located him with an ATV along East Side Trail. He had lost his light source and was trying to navigate in the dark. In addition, based on the conditions of the trail, the run took him longer than expected. So otherwise he was uninjured. So yeah, he just lost his light source. So.
So that's funny. So that's the rubs. Like, when do you call when your acquaintance, family member, whoever doesn't show up on time? Well, they did the right thing.
I mean, he was supposed to be back at 4, and the family called at 7. And
that's a good amount of time.
Him at 8:30. So, and there's no cell connection out there. So
correct. I mean, that's a good chunk of change. 4.5 hours after his expected arrival. I mean, that's probably a good time to pull the plug and call.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good timing on the families, and it is a tough area. Like, there's nothing out there from where you get from. You come down Bond Cliff and then you lose cell connection, and then you don't get it back until you get into like by Loon Mountain.
Right. So that's a really tough area.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this is another rescue in the Great Gulf. So hiker was reported missing by his employer, and they indicated that the last contact with him was well off trail in the vicinity of the Buttress Trail.
Oh my God, that gives PTSD to Mrs. Stomp.
What a nightmare.
That's a tough one.
Like any of these, like you hear the Buttress Trail, you hear Wamsuta, you hear Spinks. Like, you do not want to be down in that area this time of the year if you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you know what you're doing, like it's dicey.
Just rugged, yeah. Big boulder steps.
Yep. 38-year-old from Farmington, New Hampshire. He was attempting a northern presidential traverse, which began on Monday morning, intention of completing on Wednesday. I guess he became turned around on Star Lake Trail and headed down the Butchers Trail, which is seldom used. So rescue was initiated, and they were able to track him down on the Peabody River, and they found him in his tent attempting to stay warm.
Wow.
So all his gear. So Stomp, this may be a repeat. I'll double check and make sure, but I think we covered this one in the last episode. So if we did, we may have to pull this one out.
Okay.
So I'll double check.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, it does to me, but we'll see.
But that's it's great to talk about what he had in his pack. That's phenomenal, just to have the shelter.
Yeah, he was there. He was ready to go for an overnight, which worked out well for him.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep. Planning in action.
Yep. And then there was an additional press release put out related to the search for William Donovan. So this is the gentleman from Cambridge, Massachusetts, that had been reported missing. His vehicle had been found by Crawford Path, and just a press release that went out that indicated that they had done some additional searches on Friday, May 3rd. They had looked through Eisenhower and Pierce drainages. They had done a section of the Dry River Wilderness, and K9 teams had searched the area around Crawford Path, Edmonds Path, and Mount Clinton Road. And drone teams have also continued the search, but there's no sign. So if he's out there, he'll turn up at some point. But unfortunately, right now, he hasn't been located.
Okay. Yep. Tough time of the year, and the weather's been lousy.
Yep. And then let me see here. March 7th, Stomp. Fish and Game conservation officers responded to Pisgah State Park in Hinsdale. How do you say this? Pisgah?
I would assume so. Yeah, Pisgah.
Pisgah?
I would think so.
Well, the listeners will let us know.
Don't quote me. Yeah, they will.
They're going to let us know on this one. So, 24-year-old of Hinsdale, New Hampshire, was hiking the John Summers Trail, and she suffered a lower leg injury. Her brother and another hiking companion were able to call for assistance, and they were able to get some rescue teams out to her, get her in a litter, and carried a short distance to the Kilburn Loop Trail, where they were able to get onto a UTV, and she was driven out to the trailhead. So 1:50, the call came in, and she arrived at the trailhead around 4:10 and transferred to an ambulance and transported to Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. So all's well that ends well there.
Mm-hmm.
And this last one here, Stomp, is a lost hiker in Fremont, New Hampshire. So he's lost in the woods. 71-year-old older gentleman lost his bearings, went off trail. Is somewhere in the... Yeah, it doesn't say like he was on a real trail. It's just somewhere in Fremont, New Hampshire. The Fremont Police Department was able to establish contact with him by using a siren. The gentleman said that he was too tired and dehydrated to continue on. So the call came in at 5:30. They found him at 6:30.
Not bad.
And then they were able to, assist getting him out by using a utility terrain vehicle to transport him to a staging area where medical personnel did an exam, and then he ultimately declined further medical treatment. So, yeah, older gentleman just went out for a side quest and took him a little bit
a side
off
quest.
Trail. A little side quest.
That's great. All right. Well, that's everything, huh?
That's everything, Stomp. So I appreciate the audience. Forgive me for my causing a delay this week, but we'll get this out on Saturday evening, Sunday morning, and next week we'll be back to our normal schedule.
Yeah, we got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. Andrew Drummond next week, and in the future we have Carrie Kish, Trails NH, and then Jen Kunz. Kunz is coming back from what is it? Antarctic? The Antarctic, our Antarctic chef. So that's going to be really interesting. So yeah, we got a lot coming up on the plate.
Yeah, and remember, I'm Mike, and if you're ever stuck in the woods and you have to choose between Stomp and a bear, we're always going to pick the bear.
Well, wait a minute. It gets confusing because my last name in the Old Germanic means bear, so that's a problem.
I'm picking the furry animal over you.
Okay.
All right, we're out.
Later.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at slasherpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.